For quite some time, actually, the left has been arguing that Donald Trump was preparing to stage a coup, like an actual coup d'etat to seize control of the government. Now, an actual coup d'etat would be like the Marines running in, surrounding the White House, and then Trump saying, I am now Supreme Chancellor, or I am not vacating the premises, or something like that. And that's just not going to happen. So I guess a coup in the classical sense probably won't happen. That's probably why the left is not arguing he's going to do that. Well, they weren't. We'll get to that in a second. They were saying that Trump's legal efforts to challenge the election in many states was tantamount to a coup. Call it what it is. They've actually been saying it's a coup before the election even happened, going months back. They were like, just everyone needs to know what Trump is doing and staging a coup. And it's like, we haven't even had the election. Calm down. Trump is calling for a recount in certain districts in Wisconsin, and that's his legal right. And we haven't certified every state, and the electors haven't voted yet. So why are they calling it a coup? Well, the left is finally getting their actual opportunity to insinuate a real coup may be happening, because recently Donald Trump purged top officials from the Pentagon and installed loyalists, fans of his. And immediately we saw an article pop up in The Guardian. We've seen the calls previously. Is Trump planning a coup? Now we actually have something very interesting from the Department of Defense. Quote, I am here today to announce that I have directed the Special Operations Civilian Leadership to report directly to me instead of through the current bureaucratic channels. Acting Secretary of Defense Chris Miller. Whoa. Donald Trump purged top civilian leadership at the Department of Defense, installed people who are loyal to him, and now they're consolidating power. Yes, now the leftists are going, wait a minute, is this an actual coup? I don't know if it is or not, but I will say something feels off about everything. You know what I mean? Kamala Harris didn't resign. My understanding is she hasn't resigned her Senate seat yet. There's a lot of reasons for this. Maybe she's not entirely convinced she's going to end up being the vice president, so she's not resigning. Or maybe she's worried the Republicans might pull some last minute lame duck session and she wants to be able to vote on it, which in my opinion doesn't make sense because the Republicans still have the majority. They can vote on what they want to vote on. Doesn't matter if she's there or not for the most part, but she's not resigning. And Trump is buying a lot of time for something. He keeps filing lawsuits. He's now calling for a recount. And it does seem, look, I'm not just reading the mainstream media. I'm fact checking this stuff. And it really does seem like Trump is buying time for something. The other day we saw in Wayne County, where Detroit is, the Republicans on the certification board said they wouldn't do it. They then got harassed by many leftists and then ultimately agreed, we'll certify the results if you do an audit, which the Secretary of State said, okay. And I started to realize maybe Trump's lawsuits are really just about buying time until the certification process where Republicans might actually challenge the results, citing fraud or irregularities of which there is evidence. And then Joe Biden doesn't win. I don't know for sure, but maybe that's the real play. Would that be a coup? Not really. It would just be the legal process by which this country is supposed to function. If we cannot certify the results for political reasons, surprise, surprise, it falls to one of the contingencies, notably a contingent election. But I want to look at what the left has been saying, and I actually want to take this seriously. I think there's a legitimate and good reason as to why there's a consolidation of power in the Department of Defense in Trump's lame duck session, assuming he doesn't actually win. But the left is certainly terrified that this consolidation of power will result with Trump calling in the military, surrounding the White House or something and saying, I'm in charge and I'm not leaving. And there are a lot of things that are interesting about this. But let's read the news. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is share this video. Let's take a critical look at Donald Trump staging a coup and what might actually happen. We don't know. I don't know. We're just a little bit under a month out from the actual Electoral College certification. Certainly many leftists are not convinced Trump is just going to walk away, and they haven't been. I mean, Michael Moore's been saying it. So let's take a look at what they've been saying, the actual evidence for what's going on, and how people feel about this. Because, surprise, according to a poll, which I'm not sure I trust polls at all, more than half of Republicans think Trump did win. So there's the challenge. If many people are saying, on the left, Trump is staging a coup, Many people on the right are saying Biden stealing the election or fraud or whatever was them staging a coup. And then you have two factions who believe they're right? I wonder how it will all play out. So we'll take a look at what they're saying. Share the video if you want to help support the channel and if you think people should hear this. And don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And the first thing I'll show you is this from the New York Times. They say, Trump stacks the Pentagon and intelligence agencies with loyalists. To what end? So far, there is no evidence the appointees harbor a secret agenda or arrived with an action plan. But their sudden appearance amounts to a purge of the Pentagon's top civilian hierarchy without recent precedent. Why would Donald Trump be doing this? They say, President Trump's abrupt installation of a group of hardline loyalists in his senior jobs at the Pentagon has elevated officials who have pushed for more aggressive actions against Iran and for imminent withdrawal of all American forces from Afghanistan over the objections of the military. Mr. Trump made the appointments of 4 top Pentagon officials, including a new acting defense secretary this week, leaving civilian and military officials to interpret whether this indicated a change in approach in the final 2 months of his presidency. At the same time, Mr. Trump named Michael Ellis as a general counsel at the National Security Agency over the objections of Director General Paul M. Nakasone. There is no evidence so far that these new appointees harbor a secret agenda on Iran or have taken up their post with an action plan in hand. But their sudden appearance has been a purge of the Pentagon's top civilian hierarchy without recent precedent. I honestly have to say, it's very interesting. Now, the simple approach, I think the simple solution is that before Trump leaves, he wants to accomplish certain goals, getting us out of Afghanistan. That's the stated reason for the consolidation of power for the most part, because it's actually pretty crazy. A U.S. official lied to Trump about the number of people overseas, number of troops in Syria to maintain those numbers. And that, my friends, is more akin to a coup than anything Trump may have done. But it doesn't mean that's all that's going to happen. They say administration officials said the appointments were partly about Afghanistan, where the president has been frustrated by what he sees as a military moving too slowly to fulfill his promise that all American troops will be home by Christmas. The Pentagon announced on Wednesday that Douglas McGregor, a retired Army colonel and fierce proponent of ending American involvement in Afghanistan, would serve as a senior advisor. But what has the left been saying? Here's Ezra Klein from Vox, and we'll loop back to the Afghanistan and the Department of Defense. This is from November 7th. Trump is attempting a coup in plain sight. I wonder how many Trump supporters are going, yes. And I wonder how many regular people are going, because calm down. The left has been screeching forever. If Donald Trump finds a way through the legal process to become president, it is not a coup. If after all of the constitutional processes have been tried and it ultimately results in everyone agreeing from the courts to the certifications, Joe Biden has won and then Trump goes, no, then you have a coup. But if the electors certify Trump, if the constitutional process results in a contingent election or states get disqualified or lawsuits flip votes, that's just the legal process. They don't want to admit it, though. They're like, Trump is holding up the transition process. No, he isn't, because no one's been certified. For too long in this country, the media dictated when an election was over. Trump ain't playing that game. Well, let's see a little bit about what Ezra Klein has to say. He says, how do we cover it when it's happening here? It's happening. Oh, no. He says, a few years ago, there was a boom of articles called If It Happened There, imagining how the American press would cover this or that story if it happened in another country. How would we cover the government shutdown if it happened in another country? The Ferguson protests, the Oregon militia siege, George Floyd's killing, Mike Bloomberg. Slate's Joshua Keating popularized the form, but other outlets, including Vox, have deployed it. The intent was to use the tropes of foreign coverage to create a sense of what the literary critic Darko Suvin called cognitive estrangement, severing us from the familiarity and overconfidence that can dull our awareness of extraordinary events. And you'd get leads like, quote, the pleasant autumn weather disguises a government teetering on the brink. Because at midnight Monday night, the government of this intensely proud and nationalistic people will shut down. A drastic sign of political dysfunction in this moribund republic. I love that word moribund. It means like basically on your deathbed. But I don't think it applies. And that actually shows us something interesting. The media sensationalizes anything when they can get away with it. If they had the opportunity to write about a foreign country in such shocking and sensational terms, they would, because you don't know anything about that place. But here in the U.S., you would be hard-pressed to convince someone that this republic is moribund. And every time I've brought up that other people have said we are in a civil war, or even my opinions on this, they say, "Oh, Tim, you're exaggerating." Really now? But hey, it could happen here. I don't mean to sensationalize or anything like that. I always try to calm and be calm and rational on these issues. But it shows you how the media really operates, doesn't it? Ezra says, the slight air of parody lent the whole enterprise a sense of unreality. America isn't a banana republic. It wasn't happening there. It was happening here. And that made all the difference. In the past 4 years and the past 4 days have proven anything, it's that we are not as different as we believed. He says, Donald Trump is trying to discredit an election he is losing. Joe Biden has won the presidency, but the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, is attempting a coup in plain sight. I won this election by a lot, he tweeted. This came after he demanded that states cease counting votes when the total began to turn against him. After his press secretary shocked Fox News anchors by arguing that legally cast votes should be thrown out. The Trump administration's current strategy is to go to court and try and get votes for Biden ruled illegitimate. And that strategy explicitly rests on Trump's appointees honoring a debt the administration at least believes they owe. One of his legal advisors said, "We're waiting for the United States Supreme Court, of which the president has nominated 3 justices, to step in and do something. And hopefully Amy Coney Barrett will come through. If that fails, and it will, Mark Levin, one of the nation's most popular conservative hosts, is explicitly calling on Republican legislatures to reject the election results and seat Donald Trump as president anyway." After Twitter tagged the tweet as contested, Trump's press secretary weighed in furiously on Levin's behalf. Then we got this story. Wednesday. Wow, they updated this today? That's impressive. Can Trump actually stage a coup and stay in office for a second term? They really believe it's coming. They say the president refuses to acknowledge Biden's win, but experts say there is no constitutional path forward for him to remain in the White House. That's just not true. There is. First of all, the Supreme Court ruled earlier this year the state legislators determine who the electors have to vote for. And they could absolutely instruct the electors to vote for Donald Trump. There's no faithless electors this time around. They've said it's up to the states. Now, most states have said you have to vote for whoever won the popular vote in the state. But what if the state can't certify for some reason? There is a constitutional path forward. They're just ignoring it. They say there are worries the president and other Republicans will make every effort to stay in power. There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, said last week. William Barr, the Attorney General, has also authorized federal prosecutors to begin to investigate election irregularities, a move that prompted the head of the Justice Department's election crimes unit to step down from his position. On Tuesday, Trump fired Christopher Krebs, the director of the federal agency that vouched for the reliability of the 2020 election and had pushed back on the president's baseless claims of voter fraud. Yet despite all of Trump's machinations, it is extremely unlikely he can find a way to stay in power or stage a coup. Here's one reason why. They say Trump refuses to accept Joe Biden won the presidential election. Is there a constitutional path for him to stage a coup and stay in office for another term? Not really. The Electoral College meets on December 14th to cast its vote for president, and nearly every state uses a statewide popular vote to allocate its electors. Biden is projected to win far more than the 270 electoral votes he needs to become president. His victory doesn't hinge on one state. He has probably insurmountable leads in Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. There is a long shot legal theory floated by Republicans before the election that Republican-friendly legislatures in places such as Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania could ignore the popular vote in their states and appoint their own electors. Federal law allows legislatures to do this if states have failed to make a choice by the day the Electoral College meets. But there is no evidence of systemic fraud, of wrongdoing in any state, and Biden's commanding margins in these places make it clear that the states have in fact made a choice. Quote, if the country continues to follow the rule of law, I see no plausible constitutional path forward for Trump to remain as president, barring new evidence of some massive failure of the election system in multiple states. Richard Hassan, a law professor at the University of California, Irvine, who specializes in elections, wrote in an email. It would be a naked anti-democratic power grab to try to use state legislatures to get around the voters' choice. And I don't expect that to happen. That's some reason right there, because I agree. I don't expect it to happen. But we are hearing over and over again from Trump's lawyers that they have the Kraken. The Kraken has been released. They will release the evidence. They have so much evidence. But there's been no evidence publicly released, not from them in this capacity. We have seen a lot of evidence of impropriety. I will say, however, at least in Georgia, we now have 3 counties that have just found ballots that weren't counted. 3? Is this going to keep happening? I got to tell you, you find a batch of ballots that weren't counted, giving Trump a net gain, and I say, well, you know, these things happen. You find another batch of ballots in a different county that give Trump a net gain, and I go, okay, well, that's kind of weird, but I suppose that's lightning strikes twice, I guess. A 3rd county? Okay, that sounds widespread to me. I mean, how do you define widespread? No, it would have to be in at least 50 counties. In 3 counties, we've already found a massive number of ballots that weren't counted, breaking some historical margin. If there wasn't a recount, would they've even found it? Well, they say we would have found this. And if Trump conceded just after they announced Biden was the winner, I think it's a good thing that Trump didn't concede, considering now we're discovering this. I'm not going to call it a coup. That's ridiculous. But I will say there may have already been one in the other direction with the Russiagate lies, the smears of Trump, the jamming up his presidency, the constant impeachment attempts. And now we know one of the most shocking things and most enraging things I've seen. Outgoing Syria envoy admits hiding U.S. troop numbers, praises Trump Mideast record. We were always playing shell games, says Ambassador Jim Jeffrey, who also gives advice to President-elect Biden. You heard that right. When Donald Trump was trying to withdraw our troops from Syria, this guy lied to him and subsequently the American people to keep American soldiers in a foreign country that we should not be in, that the commander-in-chief was trying to get us out of. And the most shocking bit, not just the lies, but that he went on to say Trump did a really good job in the Middle East bringing about peace. Amazing. He advises Biden to carry on with Trump's Middle Eastern strategy. Sir, you obstructed his strategy. Many Trump supporters have said, coup confirmed. When unelected officials, when appointed officials or whatever, intervene to block the president, to wage war on a foreign country, that sounds nightmarish, in my opinion. So you know what? If there's going to be fault and there's going to be blame, it's going to be on these resistance bureaucrat establishment types. They knew better. We shouldn't listen to what Trump has to say about the Middle East and our troop levels. Oh, what's that? Historic peace agreements in the Middle East? Normalization of relations between Israel and other countries, Arabic nations? Let's continue doing that. I wonder what we could have accomplished if they did not lie. If they didn't lie. Well, now we have the latest. A disturbing number of Republicans support Trump's coup attempt. That's what they're saying. New York Magazine is outright saying, as of right now, it is a coup. And the Republicans are in on it. Now, this is from Jonathan Chait. You may remember him from such great pieces such as Donald Trump has been a Russian asset since 1987. That's right. That's not a Russian asset. That's a Soviet asset. This guy went on MSNBC and said maybe Trump was working with the Soviets. I really do not believe that capitalist billionaire golden toilet Trump was colluding with the Soviet Union. But these people have lost their minds. That's what's really scary. Anyway, he writes, last week, Axios reported an alarming but vaguely sourced story that Republicans are talking more about pressuring Republican state legislators to override the election results in their state and appoint pro-Trump representatives to the Electoral College. The next day, the New York Times identified the specific source of the terrifying data, Donald Trump himself, who floated it in White House discussions. This very maneuver was the most chilling scenario floated before the election, when Barton Gellman reported that Republican legislators in Pennsylvania had discussed it. The party indignantly denied having any such designs, and indeed, it would amount to little more than a coup carried out through a legal loophole. State legislatures in several states are gerrymandered so heavily that Republicans enjoy permanent, unassailable majorities. Letting those voter-proof bodies abrogate a free election would plunge the political system headlong into authoritarianism. And what? Joe Biden's massive lockdown wouldn't? Sorry, I'm not playing that game. He says, before proceeding, we should be clear about something. This is not going to happen, at least not this year. Donald Trump's position is far too weak to support such a scheme. He would need to flip at least 3 states. His legal team is comically inept, and his gestures toward this drastic step have been too little and too late to sustain the necessary pressure. But it's because his effort is so feeble that the compliance of many Republicans is so striking. While supporting a coup that might come to fruition is tempting, supporting one that is certain to fail is not. Trump's pathetic campaign to discredit the election is the easiest possible test of his party's commitment to democracy. Remarkably, a number of prominent Republicans are failing at it. You should probably read your own paragraph. Democracy. Republicans. Perhaps it's because Republicans are aware that we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic that elects representatives through a democratic process, far from a democracy. They're a democratic, it is in a sense, you could argue that we are a democracy in some respect. But if we're going by the truest sense of what democracy is, this country is not. It was designed this way on purpose to prevent tyranny of the majority. We would rather allow minority voices to be heard. Otherwise, you destabilize and you fall apart. Maybe. Unfortunately, that's inevitable because you're going to end up with growing factions demanding power. And they say there's more of us than there are of you. And no amount of clever legal institutions will protect the minority for long. Now, is Donald Trump actually going to call in the military, stage a coup or something ridiculous? I really do not believe so. I think it is ever so likely and increasingly likely that Trump is just going to he's going to lose this one. Call it whatever you want. And he's going to walk away. I think the real reason we're seeing all of this is because the U.S. will withdraw thousands of troops in Afghanistan and Iraq by January. Trump's leaving. He knows he's leaving. He's trying not to leave. He's trying his hardest. But he's like, okay, we've only got how much time left? He's rushing things through. He's firing people because he knows worst case scenario, he's going to be out and he needs to make sure he gets the job done before he goes. If Trump gets our troops out of here, he's going to say, I accomplished everything I wanted to. Would have nice to have had another term to continue, but I got the job done. Thank you all so much. There's not a coup. Trump is getting rid of the people who are blocking him and lying to him and lying to us to get our troops out of the Middle East. And I'm glad he's doing it. And if Trump finds a legal path to victory, then whatever, man. This is how the game is played. It's always about finding a way to win and gain power. We are not a country ruled by the majority. And that's why Trump lost the popular vote and won. We are a union, a republic of states, and each state has their own rights. I'm sure California loves the fact that they were able to legalize a ton of drugs when the federal government said no. So you can't, in my opinion, say we're allowed to pass our laws in defiance of the federal government, but when it comes to the presidency, we have more say than you. It doesn't work that way. Sorry. Ultimately, I don't know where we end up, but I can tell you, I have this story from Newsweek. Trump's Pentagon tantrum is damaging, but coup attempt it is not. From Nanahal Singh. Thank you, good sir. It's not a coup. Trump can fire and hire whoever he wants. Okay. If a coup happens, then I'll say a coup happens. I guess it's fair to point out there is a fear among the left that Trump is preparing for a coup. Maybe. It was the first conversation that came up when Trump made this move and fired all these people. But listen, I don't think Trump is evil. You know, we were having a conversation last night on the IRL podcast. Michael Malice was a guest, and he said the narrative doesn't work if Donald Trump is a C-plus president. They got to make him out to be the worst of the worst, this evil guy. And so that's what the story will always be. In reality, Trump was just not that bad. We had a great economy. He did some good things. Trump was not the best president, nor was he the worst. He was actually a pretty good one. He was fairly decent. He still is. He's still the president. And thus, they are panicking over a coup that is not going to come simply because Donald Trump didn't concede, and rightly so. They've already found a bunch of missing ballots. I mean, that's impropriety, is it not? That's okay. Widespread human error, enough to question the election, perhaps 3 times historical margins. Anyway, listen, Trump may or may not win. I'm not entirely convinced. I think we're very, very close to a Biden presidency. I don't think Trump has to concede anything until the Electoral College certifies, and he's certainly within his right to file his legal challenges. I'll add lastly, though, it does kind of feel, there's two things I want to mention. It kind of feels like Trump's lawsuits and the recount are just buying time, perhaps so that he can be in the race when the certification process starts and then actually have a legal challenge. Like I read in one of those stories, the Trump camp is waiting to go to the Supreme Court, and maybe the Supreme Court will overturn this, and that's why they need to lose. They don't necessarily need to lose. If they win early, they win. Congratulations. But if they make it to SCOTUS, they're confident, or at least they believe, they're confident that SCOTUS will side with them. But I need to tell you what this is actually all really about. I'm not entirely convinced that what we're seeing is really about Trump or a coup. I think we might be just seeing shock content. That's it. I think it's shock content. I think they're looking for a reason to scare people, to make people think that, Trump is going to stage a coup, because Trump is the golden goose. Okay? Trump is the golden goose who allows them to write story after story. For Robert Reich to get his thousands of retweets saying, because of Trump's attempted coup, Biden and his team aren't able to talk to Fauci, even as nearly thousands of Americans die a day. Never forget. That's his whole bit, right? That's his thing. That's what he does. The Trump campaign is putting $3 million behind Wisconsin recount in targeted counties, is from their announcement. And I'm sure that these people are all very happy about it. We do have evidence that there's something strange going on with absentee ballots from Republicans not being returned. And I think there's a real challenge Trump has and a real reason Trump should continue. But in the end, I wonder if I actually have this tweet. Maybe I don't have it pulled up. Oh, there it is. I got it. There it is. Ivanka Trump, quote, blamed a fart on her classmate when she was a bratty teenager. Breaking. This is the most important story of this or any generation. Not because it actually will have an impact, because it shows you just how broken media is. Perhaps all of this talk about a coup, it's really just them desperately trying to get one last golden egg, squeezing it out of a dead goose. Because what's left? Ivanka once farted. I'm not kidding. That's the story. Congratulations. Wow. Great stuff, huh? Is that really? It's going to be bad. If it comes to Trump, vacating the office and Biden coming in, what will they write about? I know one thing. It's going to be insane, and I'll talk about the insanity, and we'll see how things go. Look, maybe Trump will find a way to win. Maybe he'll stage a coup. I don't know. It seems like lightning striking 10 times in a row if that was really going to happen. In Georgia, we did find these irregularities, so maybe lightning will strike for the fourth time, giving Trump the win. We'll see, but I'm not confident. I really don't think so. I think the media has become absolutely desperate to the point now where they're writing about Ivanka once blaming a fart on someone. No joke. Are you kidding? How insane. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is a different channel from this one. Check it out, and I will see you all then.